My neighborhood was always one of those well-decorated ones. Anytime a holiday came, houses would be decorated for the 4th of July, Easter, and especially the big two, Christmas and Halloween. It seemed as though every house on my street would be decked with bright lights, yard ornaments, all that good stuff. Every house, except for the one directly across the street. And no matter how amazing the neighborhood looked, come Halloween, when all the real spectacular decorations came out, the house across from mine remained barren and dark. Between you and I believe the household was quiet, abusive. People around the neighborhood would check in with the family living there, trying to find their reasoning, and every time, it was the father who opened the door. I'd seen him myself a few times whilst going over with my mom and dad to deliver some goodwill. He always reeked of alcohol. His clothing was dingy, and it seemed as though he had a cigarette permanently welded between his middle and index finger. After a while, I think we all recognized that this guy didn't want our company, nor did he allow us to see his family. Who wouldn't get that impression after having the door slammed in your face so many times, right? He did have a daughter, though, a sweet little girl with curly brown hair and a dissociated look in her eye, as well as a wife who seemed to have checked out entirely. We'd see them hanging around on the porch from time to time, both looking frail and cautious. Anytime anyone tried approaching, though, the lady would scoop her little girl up and quickly retreat into her home. The people of my neighborhood pretty much gave the man what he wanted. We stopped checking in, stopped trying to get him to partake in something that he clearly did not want to partake in. That's how it went for a few years. They stayed secluded. The rest of us went on with our lives. That is until this year, however. Our neighborhood was selected for one of those best decorated competitions, for Halloween. We all needed to band together, show pride in our homes. By the last week of September, 90% of the neighborhood was decorated. Skeletons, graveyards, jack-o'-lanterns, and enough spooky ambience to give Stephen King nightmares. Seeing houses so scarily cozy in our little neighborhood, my dumb kid brain spawned an idea. I knew that my neighbor across the street had to work. I'd hear his truck start up and peel out of the neighborhood every morning at around 7 o'clock. Work days for him were outside days for his wife and kid. I figured I'd wait for him to leave and watch the house, waiting for the mom and daughter. For the first few days, they didn't come outside at all, nearly breaking my attention span. However, by day 4, they finally came out to the porch. The mom let her daughter play just off the steps while she smoked a cigarette on their front porch swing. I threw on my shoes, hyped myself up, and confidently walked across the street. The woman noticed me and immediately asked for a cigarette before calling for her daughter. I called out for her to wait, and she hesitated. She glanced around nervously before running her fingers through her hair as though she were stressed. She told me to make it quick, and my foot was in the door. "Ma'am, I truly hate to bother you, but we're having a competition this year," and the woman stopped me. "We're not interested." "Okay, well, if that changes, we could really use you guys. Have a good day, ma'am." She seemed to display a slight look of pity as she stuck her hand out for her daughter and shut the door behind her. I began to walk away, and about halfway down the driveway, I heard the door open from behind me. "I'll talk to him. I'll see what I can do," she called out, gently, before shutting the door once more. This put a bit of pep into my step, and I began walking again, much more chipper this time. I made it home and explained the situation to my mom, to which she rolled her eyes and told me, "Yeah, right. We'll see about that." I didn't let her words affect me. This was the most progress I think I'd ever made with this family, and I was going to take the hope I could get. I ate dinner and went to bed that night feeling proud. Even if nothing came of it, I still got the lady to say, maybe, and that was enough for me. Late that night, the sound of a thunderstorm woke me from my sleep. I jumped out of bed, concerned with the storm, and glanced out my window. Across the street, through the blinds, I could see the silhouette of two people. They seemed to be arguing with exaggerated hand gestures as both of them paced back and forth. Suddenly, one of the silhouettes seemed to strike the other, and they fell clumsily to the floor. The other figure followed, and I could see what looked to be an arm popping up and slamming down in front of the window. I audibly gasped, feeling the warmth leave my body. I watched in utter shock as another smaller silhouette entered the room before running away terrified. The silhouette from the floor then rose up seemingly and 8 feet tall and lurched forward in the direction of the smaller one. Lightning struck once more, and with a deafening clap of thunder, every house that had previously glowed with orange and purple Halloween lights was now dark and haunting. Terrified, I hopped into bed and climbed and hid under the blankets, more scared of the storm than what I had just witnessed. I fell asleep counting elephants between thunder, peacefully drifting away to the sound of weakening rainfall. The next morning, the world felt different. The quiet after the storm felt more like the calm before a new one. I had, in truth, completely forgotten about what I'd seen the night prior, and went about my day as normal. There was one thing that was abnormal, however. My neighbor from across the street was out on his porch, stringing up lights. I stepped out on my own porch and stared at him with utter confusion.
"Hey, howdy, neighbor,"
he called out with a wave. I returned the gesture, to which he smiled, and retreated back to the house. I couldn't believe it. I rushed to tell my mom what I'd seen, pretty much dragging her to the front porch to show her that I'd helped. The man was now stepping back onto his porch, a very life-size decoration of a decapitated body being held firmly in his arms. He sat the thing down on the porch swing and stuck a cigarette firmly between his middle and index finger. He then went back into the house, returning moments later with a new decoration. This one was much smaller, much smaller. Curly brown hair, stained with a dark, sticky red liquid. The eyes had been removed, and the face was mangled to the point of non-recognition. The man then stood proudly on the top step of his front porch, throwing his hands above his head in a celebratory manner.
Hey, happy Halloween, neighbors! I hope this is exactly what you wanted.
The man then pulled a bottle of liquor from his inner jacket pocket, throwing it backwards and downing half the bottle in a single gulp. Then, right there in front of our very eyes, he pulled a revolver from his pocket, stuck it into his mouth, and pulled the trigger. I can still see it in my head. I can still feel my ears ringing from the sound of the shot. My mother screamed and shoved me hard back inside the house before slamming the door and scrambling to call the police. The new lights in my neighborhood were now red and blue. The judges that we wanted were instead uniformed police officers questioning my neighbors. Please, someone tell me why this happened. Was this my fault? Gosh, I should have just minded my own business. All I wanted was to have a happy Halloween.